Imagine it, the floating city of Tenochtitlan, illuminated by torches reflecting off Lake Texcoco. On the night of June 30, 1520, this idyllic landscape transformed into a deadly battlefield, clashing swords, cries of pain, and Mexico warriors lunging from the shadows. How did Hernán Cortés end up in this nightmare? To understand the context and the decisions that led to this dramatic moment, we must turn back time and explore the beginning of a story that would redefine the conquest of Mexico. February 1519, Hernán Cortés embarked on a historic journey from Cuba, commanding an impressive fleet of 11 ships carrying more than 500 men eager for adventure. The Spanish nobleman born in Medellin had received specific instructions from the governor: explore the Yucatan coast, establish trade relations with the local indigenous populations, and gather intelligence regarding Juan de Grijalva's previous expedition. However, Cortés's vision and ambition went far beyond these modest guidelines. Acting on his own initiative and taking considerable personal risks, he organized a formidable armada with the firm determination to conquer and establish new domains for the Spanish crown. The landing in Veracruz marked a decisive moment in Cortés's campaign. There, he made a decision that would echo through the centuries. He ordered the deliberate scuttling of his ships to eliminate any possibility of retreat among his men. This act, more symbolic than literal, as the ships were strategically dismantled rather than simply burned, demonstrated his unwavering resolve to advance without looking back. During their march into the heart of Mexico, Cortés and his men came face to face with the magnitude of the Mexica Empire, an extraordinarily advanced civilization that ruled over a vast Mesoamerican territory through complex systems of government, trade, and military organization. In his strategic advance, Cortés proved to be both a skilled military strategist and a shrewd diplomat. With remarkable political insight, he forged crucial alliances with various indigenous groups living under Mexica rule, including the fierce Tlaxcaltecas, the strategically located Sempilanes, and the Tabascos. These alliances proved essential to his initial military and political successes, providing not only additional warriors, but also invaluable local knowledge, interpreters, and logistical support. However, managing these alliances presented its own challenges. Tensions among the allied groups were constant, and suspicion toward the Spanish conquerors' true intentions never fully dissipated. On November 8, 1519, after months of intense diplomatic negotiations and strategic military confrontations, Cortés and his entourage finally reached Tenochtitlan. The majestic capital of the Mexica Empire, home to over 200,000 inhabitants, revealed itself to their eyes as an engineering masterpiece and a testament to the splendor of Mesoamerican civilization. Cleverly built upon an intricate system of islets in Lake Texcoco, the city was interconnected by a network of raised causeways and intersected by canals that reflected the grandeur of its architecture and urban planning. The meeting with Moctezuma II, the Mexica-Tlahtani or emperor, was a moment of extraordinary historical significance. The ruler received the Spaniards with a magnificence and hospitality that stunned the conquistadors, offering them valuable gifts and lodging fit for royalty. Interpretations regarding Moctezuma's attitude vary. While some historians argue that he viewed Cortés's arrival as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies linked to the deity Quetzalcoatl, others contend his strategy was more pragmatic, aiming to buy time to carefully assess the nature and intentions of these mysterious visitors. The Spaniards were housed in the sumptuous palace of Axayacatl, from where they began a detailed study of the complex Mexica society surrounding them. The subsequent months were defined by a coexistence marked by underlying tension, yet maintaining a superficial stability. The conquerors could not hide their awe at Tenochtitlan's level of development and sophistication, with its bustling markets, imposing temples, and efficient government system. However, certain aspects of Mexica culture, particularly the practice of human sacrifice and rituals they deemed pagan, caused them deep dismay and rejection. In a bold move that permanently altered the balance of power, Cortés took Moctezuma hostage, using the captive Tlahtani's authority to maintain a precarious yet effective grip over the city and its residents. In May 1520, the situation in Tenochtitlan took a drastic and unexpected turn. Facing a political crisis that threatened his authority, Cortés was forced to leave the Mexica capital to confront a punitive expedition sent from Cuba. This force, commanded by Panfilo de Narváez under express orders from Governor Diego Velázquez, had the specific mission of arresting Cortés and ending his unauthorized campaign. In a brilliant display of military strategy and persuasion, Cortés not only defeated Narváez quickly at the Battle of Sempila, but also managed to convince most of Narváez's soldiers to join his cause, significantly increasing the size of his army. However, this tactical victory came at a devastating strategic cost. While Cortés consolidated his position on the coast, the situation in Tenochtitlan rapidly deteriorated. Pedro de Alvarado, appointed as interim commander during Cortés's absence, proved to be an impulsive leader completely lacking his superior's diplomatic sophistication. On the fateful day of May 23, during the sacred celebration of the Tenochtitlan festival, Alvarado made a catastrophic decision that permanently altered the course of the conquest. Acting on unfounded suspicions of a potential rebellion, he ordered an indiscriminate massacre at the Templo Mayor, where the Mexica elite had gathered for their religious rituals. The slaughter of unarmed nobles, priests, and participants was not only a human tragedy, but also represented an unforgivable insult to Mexican dignity. As a direct consequence of this reckless action, a massive, furious uprising erupted in the city, transforming relative calm into total war. The Spaniards, now the target of popular rage, were forced to barricade themselves inside the palace of Axayacatl, where they remained besieged and in constant danger. Cortés's return to Tenochtitlan on June 24, 1520, was not the triumphant comeback he had anticipated. Instead of finding the city under Spanish control, he encountered a devastating scene. His men were completely besieged, and the city had become a hostile battlefield. The Mexica, now united under the decisive leadership of Cuitlahuac, had regained effective control of the city and its surroundings. Over the following days, the Spaniards and their indigenous allies had to endure relentless waves of coordinated attacks while dealing with critical supply shortages and suffering increasingly severe losses. The military situation deteriorated by the hour, becoming clearly unsustainable. In a final, desperate attempt to restore order and appease the fury of the Mexica, Cortés resorted to a risky strategy. He persuaded Moctezuma to address his people from the palace roof. However, this tactic proved to be a fatal error. The once revered Tlatani, now seen as a collaborator with the invaders, was met with a hail of insults, stones, and projectiles from his former subjects. Severely wounded both physically and spiritually by this absolute rejection, Moctezuma succumbed to his injuries shortly after, though the precise circumstances and exact nature of his death remain a subject of intense debate among historians. With the siege tightening inexorably, supplies running out fast, and the troops at the limit of their physical and moral endurance, Cortés was finally forced to accept the bitter reality. The only viable option was to organize an immediate retreat. After careful deliberation and evaluation, the night of June 30 was selected as the most opportune time to escape. The decision was based on the hope that darkness and rain would provide the necessary cover for an orderly retreat, though subsequent events would prove otherwise. Amid the stormy night of June 30, 1520, the escape began under relentless rain falling over the city. The Spaniards, accompanied by their indigenous allies and carrying heavy treasure, attempted to silently cross the raised causeways connecting the island of Tenochtitlan to the mainland. With meticulous preparation, they had built a portable wooden bridge to cross the strategic breaches created by the Mexica and the causeways, but their careful plan was soon shattered. Fate intervened in the form of a Mexica woman, who, carrying out her nightly routine of fetching water, discovered the movement of the Spanish troops. Her screams of alarm echoed through the quiet night, and soon the imposing war drums of the Templo Mayor permanently shattered the silence, awakening the entire city. Within minutes, thousands of fierce Mexica warriors emerged from the darkness, some in swift canoes navigating the canals, others running along the banks with torches and weapons in hand. The battle that followed was a nightmarish spectacle of chaos and brutality. Spanish soldiers, weighed down by the heavy gold they refused to leave behind, fell one after another into the dark waters of the canals. Those who fell into the hands of Mexica warriors faced an even grimmer fate, being captured alive to later be sacrificed on the altars of the gods. In a moment that would be etched into history, Hernán Cortés, the conquistador who had dreamed of dominating the most powerful empire in Mesoamerica, found himself at the foot of an ancient ahuhut tree in Tacuba, helplessly watching the slaughter of his men and the collapse of his ambitions. Chronicles from the era record the devastating losses of that fateful night. More than 600 brave Spaniards perished alongside approximately 2,000 allied indigenous warriors and a significant number of Mexican nobles who had chosen to follow the Spaniards. This tragic day, marking the darkest moment of the conquest, would remain forever burned into historical memory as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows, a name that perfectly captures the deep desolation following the defeat. Despite suffering the most catastrophic defeat of his military career, Hernán Cortés demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for resilience and leadership. The exhausted survivors, after days of arduous marching, found refuge and comfort in the lands of Tlaxcala, where their loyal allies provided not only safety, but also the resources needed to recover. Over the following months, Cortés devoted every moment to the meticulous task of rebuilding his army, consolidating and expanding his strategic alliances, and designing a detailed plan for what would become the final siege of the Mexica capital. The turning point came on July 7, 1520 at the decisive Battle of Otumba. In this crucial clash, Cortés proved why he was considered an exceptional strategist. Personally leading a daring charge against enemy lines, he achieved the seemingly impossible, capturing the sacred standard of the Mexica army, an act that deeply demoralized enemy troops and turned the tide of the battle. This strategic victory not only saved the Spanish expedition from total annihilation, but also marked the beginning of a surprising military revival that would culminate roughly a year later with the final fall of Tenochtitlan and the ultimate end of the powerful Mexica Empire. La Noche Triste represents a pivotal moment in history, a reminder of the extreme heights human ambition can reach and the deep complexities of cultural clashes. This episode symbolizes not only the defeat of Hernán Cortés and his men, but also the courage and resistance of the Mexica people, who fought to preserve their land, culture, and independence against foreign invasion. This tragic chapter forces us to reflect on the dynamics of power that have defined human relationships throughout history. The conquest was not simply a military confrontation, but a process that marked the beginning of an irreversible change in the Americas. It was a violent collision between two worlds, one driven by greed and the pursuit of glory, and another defending its very existence against an enemy that could not comprehend its values or worldview. If this journey into the past captivated you, subscribe to our channel. With your support, we will continue exploring the moments that shaped the world.